video journal, in case there isn't an electronic date stamp. It's the 29th of December. This is day one after, day one was day of my co-counseling session. And that was just insanely epic. It was great. I mean, a 12-hour workday flew by on like 4 hours of sleep. All because of that morning co-counseling session. I just now realized that my whole Hannah thing was an act of desperation. I was never coming from a place of strength. Oh, guys. They're quarantined. Met a woman when I was homeless. And I had, for totally unexamined reasons that remain unexamined to this moment, just stopped traveling. And I'm not saying traveling is like the end all be all. I mean, it might be for me. But I'm just saying that, like, I changed lifestyles, and it looks in retrospect very much like a step down. And I hadn't looked at why or analyzed that at all. All I knew was, okay, I think I had started to get really lonely. Wow. I almost made the most irrational response I could have possibly made. As I started to get lonely, I started to lose energy. Since I couldn't examine that I was doing things out of loneliness and lack of connection, I just fell into a funk. Slowly but surely, deeper and deeper, all the way down. Okay. Corporate accounts payable, just a moment. My stapler. Oh man, I just... Okay, I guess I could just burn the place down. Yeah, I just burned it down. I fell into a funk. Something about journaling and introspection, actually, interestingly enough. I think the journaling, because I had started journaling, so I had been traveling for a while. In like Japan and Ecuador and Europe, and then I would kind of like get some work and then just go abroad and then get some work and then go abroad. And then a couple times I just went abroad without even having anything other than my ticket. I was like, we'll just go. Like, I went to Norway just like dirt poor. And it was just like, I mean, not even dirt poor, like zero. I had nothing. I had my return ticket. And it was great. It's best, way I always justified it was I never could have afforded a vacation in Norway anyway. Unless you're solidly middle class, if you want to go to Norway, try just hitchhiking it as a homeless person. Like, bring a tent and shit. Like, maybe literally bring food money. In my case, I didn't even care about that. I knew that I could I knew that I could make my way. And I found leftovers. I would steal from stores. I went out in the countryside and knocked on a door and was like, "Can you give me a sandwich?" Oh man. Okay. So I think, but then I started journaling. At some point, I started journaling, and I made these really cool journals. It was in Thailand. No, that's right. I started my first journal on a train from New York to the airport to fly to London, where I spent New Year's in London, and I made out with this girl in front of Big Ben, and she told me as we were making out later that she said, when you kiss me, it's as if I'm the only girl in the world. That was like the best compliment I'd ever been given in my entire life. Oh, God, what a cutie. So, like, what would have happened if I had tried to make a whole lifelong... What would have happened if I had tried to make that my one? If I had just been like, you know what? Our chemistry's too good. Like, what are you doing with your life right now? Do you want to maybe, like... Should we hang on to this? Should we not squander this? I think I made very vague plans to meet up with her again later, and then didn't blow it off so much as subconsciously blow it off. Like, that's true. How does anyone blow anything off? What do you think? Most people are like, I think I'm going to blow this off. I mean, sure, okay, we do that. You know, a doctor's appointment or something like that. I don't know. But a potential love of your life, you rarely are like, I think I'm just going to go ahead and blow it off. No, come on. You blow it off a different way, right? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Very unconsciously just, yeah, I never, you know. I remember, I don't think we planned to meet specifically, and then I like blew that off and didn't show up, though that's possible. I think what happened, I remember staying in touch with her. I remember having some Facebook communications, and it was like, you know, long distance, there was just no chemistry at all. So we didn't really talk a lot via Facebook. I mean, there were some love letters, you know, there was a little bit of chemistry, but like almost none. Oh man, what a trip. How much of that was her and how much of that was just where I was at the time? How interchangeable with other women would she be because I was like on top of the world. So I had that to give. And then she was in the right place at the right time. And then how much of it was like, you know, irreplaceably her. It was just like, no, it was a really lucky and fortuitous confluence of different circumstances. Anyway, so I had started journaling on the train to... Oh, man, this history just gets so complicated because I was staying with a girl in New York who was a best friend who had gone hitchhiking with me from Ecuador to New York. Not then, but years before. I'm not going to get into it. We didn't hook up. She's still a really good friend. Sort of. She's a very good friend, a very, very good friend, a very, very dear friend. But she's only very periodically available, which I totally understand, actually. I mean, I myself am not always the most available person. I blow people off. I blow things off for like a decade, you know, and then I'll be like, hey, yeah, how you been? And they'll be like, dude, you told me off like 10 years ago. What are you doing? You know, such an idiot. I was telling my most recent ex, I've like bombed and destroyed more good relationships than most people will probably ever get to have. And waking up to that has been very hard to live with. It just makes me want to kill myself. It's like, wow, you piece of shit. So I get all butthurt that this girl that I've like rejected a lot, who's this best friend, doesn't, now that I suddenly want to get frisky with me, get romantic with me. And so I kind of left her house in a bit of a huff. Okay, I definitely stormed off in a huff. It's weird because I'm kind of proud that I did, though, because it gave me a lot of power. See, and I don't know where to strike the balance with these things, man. So many of the moves I've made in relation to women in my past, by being proud and being like, all right, fine, whatevs, lates. And then it's led to really good things in my life. So I'm really confused because I know that there's a huge problem there, you know? This damn thing will just stop recording randomly and not like tell me. So I keep having to check. Okay, so I'm riding the train and I have this random novel with me that happens to be a hardback. And so I flip it open and I just start journaling in those blank pages at the very beginning. And I'm like, this is perfect. I'm going to figure out how to turn this into a journal. And later I did. You just like cut out little tabs. So you cut out pages. Every other page you cut out as completely as you can. But every other page you only cut out partially. You leave a tab, like maybe a ½ inch wide. 3/4, whatever I showed you. And then you grab some glue sticks. You take some sheets of like printer paper, copier paper, whatever. I really enjoyed going into dumpsters and finding paper. Later on, I would make journals. I would go into dumpsters, I'd find paper. I would use one of those industrial staplers that they have at every uni library has a stapler that can staple like 200 sheets. So you go to the uni library, you grab the stapler, you go to dumpsters, you find paper. I found cotton weave paper that had a tiny amount of ink on each page. Something had ruined it. So they threw it away, you know, some kind of like law firm paper or something. I can't even remember what kind of a firm it was, but and you know, you just take I took cardboard from a Coca-Cola 12 pack and that paper and stapled it all together at the uni stapler. And I had a great journal. I called that the anti-corporate Johnny. So anyway, so this very, very first journal, this is like the index journal. Journal Prime, whatever. Okay, so I'm on this train, I write in the blank pages. Oh, the tabs, yeah. So you just grab yourself some glue stick, you take paper, you slap it in there. You're cutting out every other page. So for every page you're adding to the bulk of the book, you're removing a page. So it actually works out fine. And then especially if you end up, you know, doing any kind of pasting or you like to like add, you know, scrapbooking or anything like that, by removing every other page, if you do very light scrapbooking, it'll end up about the exact thickness of the book. I would guess that if you like to scrapbook fairly heavily, you should cut out 2 pages for every tab that you make. And then you can just slap the paper in there. Just, what I always did was I took a sheet of paper and I slid it under my tab in the book. And then I ran my glue stick real fast back and forth across it. Just real messy. Just get the tab slathered. And then I pull that sheet out and put it to the side. And then I grab another sheet, slap it on my tab, rub it, and then cut out my next tab. Grab my messy sheet with my glue stick all over it and slide it under the next tab and take the glue stick and keep going like that. And then I'd do like 30 pages at a time because I would do it in bundles because I would need like 30 pages every other day. So after I do 30 pages, then I take the book and I like press my hand down on it pretty hard. Hey Scott, how you doing?
Hi. Hope the cats are happy.
Oh my God, they're so happy. Sorry that's in your way.
Oh, that's okay, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked in on them. Nothing stranger than one hiding under the blankets happened. And
Okay. Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, would you mind doing that again around New Year's?
no problem. When are you going?
I am leaving on the 30th. Sunday the 30th I take off, and I
Okay.
come back on the 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, no problem.
Oh my God, Scott, thank you so
They
much.
seemed happy when I poked my head in.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay. Okay, thank you.
I'm off to work.
Okay, see ya. Have a good day. Okay. You know how you're supposed to hate your own voice? I've completely gotten over it. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like when I listen to that later, I'm going to be like, oh, Mr. Squeaky Pants, listen to him go. But I'm also actually, I know that I'm Mr. Squeaky Pants, but I'm not going to notice it. I'm almost certain. Well, now that I've talked about it now, I probably will notice. But if I hadn't mentioned it, I probably wouldn't have even noticed it. I think the trick is to let your voice have some range. I think guys all want our voices to be like Mr. Deep all the time. And it's like, I don't know. I don't even know that that would be attractive, actually. I think having dynamic range is what's interesting. So I've noticed that the looser I am, the chiller I am, it's not that my voice becomes always like this and like it's always gravelly and gruff and manly. It's like it goes to the, it's like yeah, it's all over the place. It has as wide. That's how you know you're finding some like chill in life, is not that your voice is one direction, but that it increases its range. I feel like that's true for guys. I wonder if it's the same for girls. I bet it's just the same for girls. The chiller you are in life at that time in your life, probably just the higher the range of your voice will be. And the more monotone you are, boy, watch out. That just sounds really bad. Yeah, that just sounds like you're not experiencing your full range of emotions. But I mean, I don't know, but maybe try meditating and trying new drugs. That's what I recommend. Like if you've been doing nothing but coffee, cut out the coffee and switch to Kratom or something like that. Or the only thing I don't recommend ever playing with is alcohol, because it's just so poisonous and awful and tempting, and it numbs all emotions. So it's precisely the opposite of trying like shrooms. Like if you want to play with hallucinogens, great. That's going to help you bring out the full range of your being. Or at least the full range of your experience. It depends on how woo-woo you want to get with your wording. But, so I started a journal. And I mean, it was really fun. So I started a journal, and then so I was on the train to the airport, and then I flew over and I journaled some more, and I just got more and more into it. Oh, that's right. Okay. You press down and you just tear up. Once you've got your stack of sheets that are, I used to cut them to size first, or install them and then cut them to size. All of that, in my opinion, was a nightmare, because I'm not an artist. I'm a practicalist. And so I don't think I've hardly ever let myself express myself artistically just for the joy of it. Maybe I'm missing a gene. But I do get so much of a thrill out of like fixing a broken thing. In fact, I'm going to go volunteer at this place today, mostly because I made a kind of stretch to during co-counseling. And that just, it's like, it was so authentic. It feels so right. I'm like, oh man, I'm not even going to wait to be bugged in a week by one of my co-counselors is going to help me hold myself accountable. And, so she's going to bug me in about a week. She's going to bug me after New Year's and be like, hey, so did you do this thing? I'm going to go do it today. I'm so excited. I mean, it's a day off, and I can bring 3 boxes of crap there because I'm getting the fuck out of here. So got to get rid of stuff. I'm going to figure out how to bounce back and forth between like staying in the United States and like building community and like going abroad and playing and having fun and being independent and free, because like for me at least, the extremes don't work. I tried the extreme free, and I tried the extreme tie myself down with. I didn't try the extreme of community. I literally suck so bad at that even just trying the extreme of tying myself down, do you know what I mean? Like by now I have like tools out the wazoo. I can do a lot of different stuff with my toolkit, and I could be running a little wood shop, you know, making thingies and like selling them on Craigslist, like, you know, just making homemade bookshelves and like, I don't know, homemade junk like that. It wouldn't be like all artisanal, like a homemade chair that looks like anything remotely like a factory made chair. It would be like artistic, you know, your homemade bookshelf that's like a ladder and planks and screws and maybe some cables. Ooh, can we integrate the cables? Oh my God. So yeah, I mean, I could probably be easily making a living off of that right now instead of working at like a delivery job. But you gotta go with your strengths, right? I mean, you know, not too extremely. You gotta like have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. Google the terms. Very interesting concepts. But anyway, oh geez, I hope my finger hasn't been over any mic holes. Oh, that can happen. I had a phone where it had a single mic hole for the whole phone. I have this feeling like this one has another one right there, right under this is an iPhone SX Max, and I think the camera assembly that I'm looking at has a mic hole in it because the semi-sapphire cover has a hole in it. I don't know what else. Why else would you need a hole that you'd have to waterproof? It's like, why bother making a hole? You're just gonna have to waterproof, unless it's a mic hole, because there's just, well, it's a little hard for sound to get through sapphire. Anyway, so I'm hoping it's really hard to ever, but I've heard recordings on this where it suddenly went quiet, and I'm like, well, I didn't see a finger go over that. I don't know, but maybe that's like a secondary mic hole. I don't get it. I'm sure I could find these things out. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. So okay. Oh yeah. You just press down, you tear. You just press down and tear. And then you end up with those rough edges that some books come with on purpose anyway. And I think it winds up beautiful. I mean, I'm all about the, like, if you can fix an entire broken thing with just like one well-placed screw, it's usually going to be a drywall screw, because those are the most abundant of the screws in your life. I don't know why, at least in my life. Every now and then I find like a jar of screws, you know, like I was naughty and I went to one of these like awesome, it's called the Rebuilding Center. The Restore, yeah. And they had a dumpster of metal scrap where it's like people bring them stuff and they don't feel like they can sell it. So they just put it in their jar of metal scrap and then they just get the scrap weight for it. So it was a glass jar about a gallon in volume, full of different sizes of screws. And so I totally stole that. So, you know, I love accumulating shit like that, because then you can just fix anything, you know? So you just tear off, you just like put weight down, open the cover, put weight down so that you're looking right down the edge of the paper of the book, and you just grab all your sticky outy edges that are extra and you just tear. And you just grab like 5 sheets at a time and if you just push down, if you grabbed a little block of wood, it would probably make it even easier, because that would help you push real hard on the book paper and create a kind of an edge. And so you just use the paper itself, the book paper already as the edge. So like go where you've got more book. Yeah, put your paper down and more book up and tear that way. Unless I can imagine that if you found a piece of wood or a piece of metal or you had a steel ruler, and then you could put weight on that, you had something with a sharp edge of its own, then go the other way and just tear directly against your own paper. But either way, it just all depends on how you want it to look. It just looked fine for me. I tried knives, I tried X-Acto, I tried scissors, and all of it just came out crappy looking. That came out looking the best, actually, and it was the easiest and the fastest. So that to me is art, is like elegance. Yeah, like Dr. Paul, like David D'Angelo's Dr. Paul has this definition of elegance, and it's just simplicity, something like that. Sorry, I like to include everything with everything. Every video has to be the whole story of my entire life, with everything and all the philosophy, all of it. So, okay. So I'm always in danger of trying to say everything at once. So I started this journal. So then and so then I was journaling through London. I was journaling through Thailand. The Thailand journal came out. Oh my God, that came out really well. I had a lot of fun with that. I found a library bound book that had that plastic cover on it. Oh no, that's not true. I bought some kind of book plastic covering for like school kids. So I took another hardback book, made a journal just like I described, and then I like cut out some inlay in the cover. The cardboard cover I cut most of the way through in a circle pattern and put in some Thai coins, and then I pasted on some other fun stuff, and I like put the books together so that it said Thailand on its own. Like I took it out of like a Thailand tourist map or something, just the word Thailand, and then put the plastic cover over it. So it's kind of pretty. I should show you. And then inside I used all these different color markers and things, and I occasionally made drawings. And oh my God, word to the wise, though, speaking of artistry, if you like to journal and you like to just draw a little teeny bit, draw more. When I look back on my journals, my drawings are my favorite things. If you like to philosophize and you like to tell stories here and there, tell more stories. When I look back on my journals, my second favorite things are my stories. Simple narrative stories. What happened? I can get interpretive about what happened, like any author does, where I'm like interpreting my own states, interpreting the states of others, interpreting what happened. But philosophizing, that's actually the least favorite of my writings, is all the stuff that I thought was me being a genius and contributing to the world. Then ask me why. But the stuff that you think is irreplaceable might actually be the least valuable. And the stuff where you're like, oh, whatever, it's just what happened today. That might be what other people want to read the most. And it might be what you yourself want to read the most later. So, and then drawings. I defined myself as someone who doesn't know how to draw. So I didn't let myself hardly ever draw. And now I look at the drawings and I'm like, oh, those are cool. I drew fine. I don't know. It looks like the thing I can see what I was going for, and I love it. I could have changed my whole life. Still might. Okay. So letting myself be artistic. That could happen. This will happen. Got to create safety and freedom in the right environment to where I want to be artistic so that it doesn't tie me down. Because that's the thing. The danger for me is in getting tied down. Getting tied down in a bad way. Like I just accumulated shit. And so then by the time I got dumped, it's like, well, okay, I've been left. I've got no family. I've got no one. I haven't made connections. I haven't built community. I'm not like plugged in. I'm not doing anything important. No one relies on me. No one counts on me. I don't mean anything. I'm not like, it's not like a problem where you're like spread thin throughout the community. You do a little volunteering there and a little there and a little there, and you have the one person you're dating, and it's all kind of like not working. It's just not adding up. It wasn't even at that level. It was like, no, it's me and my cats and my shit, my stupid fucking tools, and my like best friend who hardly ever we have time for each other, and like, you know, he's emotionally available for about a day at a time, and then it's like 2 weeks of he's not there. And then, you know, to be fair, then it's my turn. You know, the next 2 weeks, I'll be emotionally available for like a day. And then for weeks on end, I'm not there, you know. And so we're assholes to each other. And then we're barely nice to each other. And then we barely can admit to caring about each other. And we barely care about each other. And, you know, I mean, like, so yeah, I'm just getting rid of my shit. Just discovered this book. So I had Marie Kondo's book about tidying up. And that was like connecting, like definitely connecting, but also like definitely not quite connecting. And then I stumbled across this other book. And it's called Goodbye Stuff. And that's connecting. I don't even think I need to read it. It's such a connect. And so I think I'm trying that. Doing his thing. Which is all part of the same thing with Marie Kondo. It's just not the KonMari method, but it's still part of the Japanese, what I would call the Japanese voluntary simplicity movement. But it's more, is it the Japanese decluttering movement? What do they call it? I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. I mean, they call it something in Japanese anyway. So, God. So I started journaling. So then, oh, yeah. Something about journaling led to depression. I think it was the introspection. And I think it was that the introspection led to me getting closer and closer to realizing a loneliness because of a detribalization. See, I think I was hitting on, I think I was doing work for all of you. I think I was doing, you know how like if you do personal work and you watch someone do work, sometimes you're like, wow, man, you were doing some of my work, you know, like you like relate, you watch that. This is the miracle of like any types of personal development work, like PSI or MKP or co-counseling. It's all about the same. And well, I'm sure there's different, you know, you find the one that works for you. And I'm sure some of them are maybe empirically better than others, but in any case, all the principles just come up again and again and again. And it's like, I don't think I was just finding my loneliness. I think I was finding the loneliness. Like what Christians call the hole in your heart that only God can fill. Yeah, I think it's there. I think it's really there. And I think what's missing isn't God, it's the tribe. And so I think in a way, I was doing your work. I think I was doing the work of the people of civilization. But I was doing it from my own uniquely lonely place that certainly wasn't made any less lonely by the fact that I was like living on my own and I was just floating around Florida or Philadelphia or wherever and, you know, just journaling for like 3 hours a day and like. So, I mean, at that point, it was still kind of okay, but I had stopped traveling. Not the best sign. I mean, sure, I'm hitchhiking from Philadelphia to Florida and wherever, and I'm visiting people, but my international travel has degraded to domestic travel, which further later degraded to standard homeless hippie street scum domestic travel. Like I almost became a crusty fuck. And I basically, you know what, from your point of view, if you're like a normie, I was a crusty fuck. Those are those kids that you see in like Carhartts that are absolutely blackened with goo and all they do is drink and yell at each other. I've hung out with those people quite a bit at rainbow gatherings. And like, even at rainbow gatherings, I would try and kind of avoid them actually. Well, okay, that's not 100% true. I've hung out a little bit and drank with them, but it's like, I mean, they take it to an extreme that I can't even begin to match. But like, basically, relative to you, that's what I was actually. Except worse than that. Because instead of hanging out with each other and yelling at each other, I was hanging out by myself and yelling at myself. And then I would meet some friends and travel with them, and then I would get low, and then I would travel on my own again. So I met this girl. I had just made a bunch of friends. I had pretty much stopped journaling. This just degrades and degrades and degrades. I had stopped journaling. I had started drinking heavily. At this point, I'm not doing the work. I'm not doing anybody's work. I wasn't even doing my own work. So I go from like, I'm doing civilization's work a little bit, you know, like, and I'm journaling about what it's like to be in civilization, like the loneliness, like I'm really going into it. I'm like diving deep. I'm like, this is profound. And I'm like, waking up more and more and like reading and rereading Quinn, you know, and just like endlessly applying it and like looking around me and like almost going through an identity shift. I'm like rereading Story of B and being like, I am B. It's true. This is my job. This is my life. And I'm going to spend the next 20 years reading the anthropology and the world history, and I'm going to become B just like the B in the novel. And then I like wake up like 3 weeks later and I'm like, oh, well. Okay, I'm not going to change my whole lifestyle and change my whole personality and become a scholar. No, that was unrealistic. But I was doing something, and it was a delving in, it was a waking up, it was looking around at the people of the Nasarima, you know, Google that. It was being the Martian anthropologist. I was watching. I would hang out in a Panera and steal their coffee and read my book and journal. And I think that week I was rereading my Ishmael and filling it with marginalia. I like turned that into a like full of like notes and annotations and deeper thoughts and like stuff that Quinn missed and then just thoughts that he spurred and anyway. To the point where the manager, after like a week, he's like, hey, so am I gonna have to start charging you rent? You know, he was so sweet. And I was like, oh, I was probably all defensive. I was probably defensive. I probably think that I was nice to him, but was actually very defensive, if I could just see me now. And I was probably like, yeah, I was probably like, do you need me to get out of here? Yeah, that's what I was like, do you need me to go? And he was like, yeah, I think it's probably, how much longer were you going to hang out? Were you going to just live here for the next month? You know, because I was there for like, 4 or 5 hours a day. But then I would get done journaling and I would go drink. See, and this was starting to get bad. So then it degrades further. It keeps degrading. I stop journaling. I'm drinking more and more heavily. I'm hanging out with friends sometimes. And I make this little crew of friends. And we would share an 18-pack of like Bush 16-ounce cans between the three of us. So that's a 6-pack of 16-ounce cans per person per night. That was normal for us. We were fucking drunks. Living outside. That's not a tribe. We were tribal in some sense. We were far more tribal than, in some sense, we were more tribal than most people ever are in their entire lives. We found food together. We shared everything. Everything that we needed, we got together. Panhandling. I was good at panhandling. I would get a greater proportion of our beer money. Suniva was pretty. She probably got us a far greater proportion of our rides. Ross is a peacemaker. First of all, he pulled Suniva. So we wouldn't have had her but for him. And he wouldn't have had her but for me because I'm actually the one who opened her. Like on the street, she's walking by, maybe with some girlfriends. And I'm like, hey, come here. You're cute. You're talking to us now. And she's like, okay. I don't really remember how it went. But if you do it like that, it'll usually work. Trust me, the best pickup line in the world is hi. What I sang? Oh God, yeah. So he's with Suniva. I'm kind of third wheeling it, but she's also third wheeling it because him and I are like besties, and we're like a couple of guys, a couple of sort of street bros, and talking philosophy all the time, making her feel all excluded and stupid and stuff. Not proud of it. Yeah, so she brought fashion to the mix. I brought stuff to the table. He brought stuff to the table. It was one for all for one. That's tribalism. Now, am I claiming that it was functional tribalism? No, not even at all. But that's how detribalized we are. You know, you think your nuclear family is tribal? I would honestly posit that anthropologically, we were way more tribal than your nuclear family. That's hierarchical. That's just a microcosm of civilization. You've got parents who are the boss, kids who are more or less property. Not the same thing. Maybe the occasional, like, 1 in 1,000 family that really, really trusts their kids. Like, their kids are independent, autonomous organisms. You give them what they need, and you leave them the fuck alone. Okay, that's tribal. And then especially if you give your kids jobs, like if you allow them to participate, if you allow yourself to need them a little bit so that they kind of mutually support. So this is almost unimaginable in civilization. You'd have to have the most amazingly well-to-do middle-class couple that just somehow spontaneously has this attitude of total autonomy toward their kids, and yet have more of a lower-class attitude, like back in the farming days of like, but you know, I'm going to be willing to like kind of need your help a little bit, like you help a little bit here and there, like in tribes the kids are plenty useful, I'm pretty sure, though there's never any pressure to be useful. It's precisely the opposite. You discover for yourself your desire to be useful. You know, a mother will make a kid a little baby version of like a laundry scrubber, you know, and the kid will play around with it for like 5 seconds. And there's absolutely no disappointment that the kid didn't want to actually help with the laundry. The kid wanted to play at helping with the laundry. Whereas on the other hand, little girls carry around babies constantly. I mean, from the time that they're 2 or 3 or 4 years old, little girls are carrying around infants. So there's plenty of work for kids to do, and they want to do it. And depriving them of that work is wrong, in my opinion. And it's certainly dysfunctional anthropologically. And did I even have a point? Okay. Wow. Okay. So things are degrading. So I am so sorry, but I don't think I'm going to go over this video and do the whole, like, including every point that I missed. If there's some major thing, like the page is tearing, like, if there's some major thing where I led you up and I led you up and I led you up and then I just got distracted, I'll try and make like but I'm doing a 5-minute cap. That's it. So everything that I touched on that doesn't feel explained or complete, I'm just going to have to leave. Unless I can fit it into that 5-minute extra tack on, because this is going on 40 minutes. This is insane. So, okay, so things are degrading. But I'm traveling with that crew, and so that was really cool. We were listening to Rat-a-Tat, like boomboxing it, walking along a riverbed, you know, who knows where we're gonna hitch next, and things are like open and awesome, and we're exploring California, and then things are also degrading right before my very eyes, and I'm not judging it or looking at it at all. I'm not noticing. So I'm actually getting lonelier and lonelier and lonelier because there's a lack of like stable, safe, healthy connection. You know, I mean, obviously we're not forming an emotionally functional and cohesive tribal unit. A, with 3 people, that's totally not enough. And B, I mean, you can form something kind of like tribalism with even just one other person. I mean, make no mistake, we are still a tribal organism. We just have vestigial tribalism. And we have what I call the tribe of 2. And that's the happy couple. That's the only tribalism we're still allowed here. Everything else we disallow ourselves. The only problem with humanity is that we withhold ourselves from each other. The only thing we need to do to survive in civilization, or to at least die less miserable, is to give ourselves back to each other. See my other video on how everyone could just cut their bills and their expenses in half. It's a really fun idea. You just, like, everyone just work half as much, double up on living together. So just fit twice as many people in the space, cut your work hours in half, cut your bills in half, increase your community, increase your family. Boom, wham, bam, done. End of story. Start buying up homes in a neighborhood. That way your kids can run around. That way, you know, you've got like, let's say 8 homes within an 8 square block area. All the kids know that all of those homes are home. All of those parents are parental figures. Really, really simple stuff. And it's scalable too. I mean, you could retribalize the entire civilizational system, and it could maybe become. I mean, this is kind of like a functional utopian dream, a realistic utopian dream. Okay, so, because what stops people from buying up homes in a neighborhood and letting their kids hang out at their neighbor's house? It's not their neighbor, it's tribe members, you know, I mean, and just, I don't know. And then what's unrealistic about just fitting twice as many people in a space so that way you don't have to work as hard and you can spend more time with your family, and your contribution to landfill and global warming and all that's like half, you know. Anyway, okay. I'm back. I meet this girl who I think is the love of my life right when I'm hanging out with these people and I'm like hitchhiking around, well, actually, I was by myself. I had separated from those people and I was by myself. And then I met her in a bookstore talking about Ishmael. I'm like walking along the aisles and I just like see this cute, like, Asian looking girl. I'm just like, yeah. And she's just like sitting upright in a chair, just like closing her eyes, just like chilling, just like ramrod straight, just relaxing. And I'm like, oh my God. So luckily there's a big chair right next to her. It's like 2 big chairs. I sit down and I'm like, just kind of waiting. And then finally she kind of like opens her eyes to like see who sat down next to her. And I'm like, hi. And we start talking and I start presenting these concepts from Ishmael. I think what happened was she was like, oh, that sounds familiar. And I was like, oh yeah, it's from this book Ishmael. And she's like, oh yeah, I read that. And she was assigned it. And so then I was like, oh, so I'm all pop quiz. How about this? You know, and I'm like, okay, so the main point is, and she's like, that this? And I was like, no. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe I fell for that. God damn it, I read it. I should have known that, you know? And so that's how that thing got started. But like, it turned into a thing later, and that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother, maybe much longer video. Oh, God. So the point is that I meet this person at this point in my life when I've gone from being kind of a cool globetrotting traveler who, you know, gets a little work and then goes abroad and has fun for 6 months and then comes home and maybe gets a little work and then goes abroad again. And he was hitchhiking Norway and he went to the World Rainbow Gathering and you know, like stuff like that. And then it kind of degrades to like this guy who hangs out in the Panera and he's like journaling for 4 or 5 hours a day, but it's like, you know, and then he's also drinking and he's completely alone. There's no narrative. There's no story. You know, what's your narrative? That's important. Right. And then he's like, and, you know, there's ups and downs in there, you know, I mean, like in Thailand, I had this crew of like 7 people that I was part of. It was amazing. That was one of the most tribal things that I've ever experienced. Far more tribal than just drinking every night with Suniva and Ross. This was like, we really had a person who was best at the skill that fulfilled every need. Like I was the group negotiator because I'm good with numbers in foreign languages. So whenever we would go to market, I could say all the numbers in Thai and I'd be like, no, I just heard you tell him that, you know, I just heard the local price. So, you know, and not that people are bad. I understand. If you could conveniently just identify who you can charge double, don't tell me you wouldn't. If you can get away with it, they don't even know. And who you hurting? They've got a lot more. It's okay. Anyway, just in case you've got some like horribly negative attitude about the foreigner price, which is a very common feature of travel. Anyway, so I was the group negotiator, so I would Jew them down as much as I could. That was super racist. I'm just kidding. Okay. Good God. Wow. Do I have to edit that out? Do I have to like cut out one thing from a huge video because of our culture being the way it is? Do I even need to go into that? I don't know. I might just end up having I'd rather cut it out than like make the whole thing worthless because people are that stupid. But it would be me. It would be my choice and my misread of the reality of the situation. It would be 100% on me if I don't cut it out and it makes the whole video worthless. I'm the one making the entire video worthless over one stupid darling. Google like a darling if you don't know what a darling is. Oh my God, I'm starting to vibrate. I'm probably ruining this video just by vibrating. Okay. So you've got this person and they're degrading on down, and now finally they're like hanging out with meet her when I'm on my own, being a journaling alcoholic. See, and what happened after this, after throwing myself at her and completely failing and like just embarrassing myself and kind of getting played a little bit. I mean, it got to the point where I had hurt her so bad that she was starting to manipulate me. Because I like seduced her really nearly perfectly, but then all of a sudden just slept with someone else. Like, just right at the perfect moment when she's just starting to fall for me, and like told her about it. Pulling shit like that. Like, anyway. That's that whole other story I was talking about. Not gonna go into it. Okay. it's just this thing where I'm like, wow. Oh no, I might have been covering the mic holes. I can't believe that I thought that, it's like, was that going to save my life? That doesn't make any sense. You're not going to meet the girl of your dreams or the guy of your dreams or the person of your dreams when you are at that point in life where things are just degrading. I mean, maybe some people have got a story, things were falling apart very slowly right before their eyes without them even noticing, and then they met someone and that someone saved them, and they look back in hindsight and they're like, wow, my life was becoming dog shit. I'm so glad I met you. But I kind of doubt it. I would more strongly suspect that you meet people on your way up than on your way down. Because quite frankly, Hannah didn't cause me to crash and burn for 10 years. I was already stumbling, and I just hadn't quite fallen yet. And it was just her foot that I used to trip on, to finally crash and just plow into the ground like that Star Trek movie with Star Trek 4 with the whales, where they crash the ship and it it's a typical Jerry Bruckheimer Bayhem style scene where it has super inertia. It's like crashing into the ground forever. Stop already. This is supposed to be sci-fi. If you have an ounce of intuition about physics, that should have stopped by now. As should have this. Meow.